I've never been the sort of bloke who buys into road stories. You know the ones. Ghostly hitchhikers, vanishings that make no sense, lights flickering out of nowhere. They always felt like something out of a cheap horror flick. That is, until one night in September 2003, when I was driving down the M6, heading back from a delivery in Preston. I was a lorry driver back then, often pulling night shifts because I liked the quiet. But that night, the quiet felt different, heavy, like the air itself had thickened, and it all started right at the spot where, days later, I found out an accident had been reported. One nobody could ever properly explain. I just passed the stretch between junctions 16 and 17 on the M6 when something felt off. The radio in my lorry, usually tuned to a local station to keep me awake, started hissing with static, loud and sharp. I figured it was just interference, no big deal. But then my headlights flickered, once, twice, before settling back to normal. I eased off the accelerator, scanning the road for whatever might be causing it. That's when I saw it. A pickup truck flipped on its side like it had rolled and skidded to a stop smack in the middle of the carriageway. Not another car in sight. No flashing lights. Just this mangled truck, its bodywork glinting under my headlights. I pulled onto the hard shoulder, flicked on my hazard lights, and got out. I walked towards the wreck. The air stank of petrol, and the passenger door was hanging open, swinging slowly, like someone had just climbed out moments before. I shouted, asking if anyone needed help. No answer. The weirdest part? There were no skid marks, no sign of another vehicle being involved, just this truck abandoned. As I got closer, something made me freeze. There was no blood, not a drop, but the seats were soaked, like someone had been sitting there, drenched in cold sweat or tears. And then, strangest of all, there were papers scattered across the floor, covered in handwritten notes, like someone had been frantically scribbling something down. I picked one up. It just said, "They buried us in the road." A chill shot up my spine. I legged it back to my lorry and called the police. I waited there on the hard shoulder for nearly half an hour, but no one showed up. No patrol cars, no sirens. When I tried calling again, my mobile had no signal, even though I always got full bars in that area. And then, the pickup truck was just gone. I didn't hear an engine, no tires screeching, nothing. It was like the thing had vanished into thin air. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the empty patch of road where it had been. The motorway felt darker, stretched. I climbed back into my lorry and floored it, desperate to get out of there. The next day, I rang the depot and asked if there'd been any reports of a crash that night. They said no. I even went down to the local NIC and told them what I'd seen. The copper just stared at me for a moment before saying, "You're not the first to report something like that, but we've never found anything, and there's been no official record of a crash on that stretch all month." A few weeks later, I spotted a small article in a local paper. M6 mystery. 3 young lads vanish after unconfirmed crash. Their families said they'd been driving back from a night out, that their car had lost contact on that exact stretch. But their bodies were never found. No trace of the car. The only thing left behind was a note, found in one of the lads' wardrobes. "The road is hungry." Something in me changed after that. Every time I'm on a quiet motorway now, I feel it. Something watching, waiting, like certain places are alive, or worse, starving. I don't tell this story lightly, because I know how it sounds. I know it sounds like I've lost the plot, but I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. I've never gone back to the M6 since that night. Sometimes when I'm driving alone and it's dead quiet, I hear static crackling on the radio, and my blood runs cold, because deep down, part of me thinks I didn't escape that road. That something's still out there, trailing me from a distance. Do you believe in roads that swallow people whole? Because I've seen one, and it's still out there, waiting for its next meal. I've never told a soul about this. Not my wife, not my mates at the station. Maybe because I'm terrified of sounding like I've lost it, or worse, of being believed. Back then, I was a traffic cop, posted to the M6 between Birmingham and Walsall. It was the early hours of 22nd September 2003. I'll never forget it. It was the strangest night of my life. The call came through around 2:20 a.m. The dispatcher patched it through, but it was vague. Reported accident near Junction 17. Possible vehicle flipped, driver missing. I grabbed the patrol car and headed out with my partner, Graham. The mail M6 was dead empty, like the world had just shut down. Just the flickering streetlights and that icy silence that sometimes screams inside your head. As we got closer to the spot, we knew something was off. The radio in the car, which had been working fine, started crackling with this high-pitched, erratic noise, like someone was trying to tune into a station that didn't exist. We tried calling base. Nothing. When we reached the reported stretch, our headlights caught something on the verge. A metallic blue pickup truck, flipped on its side. But it didn't look like it had hit anything. No crash marks, no debris from another vehicle. It was like it had dropped out of the bloody sky. We got out, moving slow. My holster felt heavier that night. It wasn't paranoia. It was gut instinct. We approached the truck. The bodywork was still warm, like the crash had happened minutes ago. The driver's door was open, and like the report said, no sign of anyone inside. Graham shone his torch into the cab. No blood, not a scratch on the seats. But there was something weird on the windscreen. Handprints, loads of them. Like someone, or a group of someones, had been pressing against the glass from the inside, trying to get out. Only there was something wrong with those hands. They were too small. We decided to sweep the area. The fence separating the road from the woods was smashed, like someone had barreled through in a hurry. We followed the narrow path into the trees. The air reeked of damp earth and rotting leaves, swallowing the sound of our boots. That's when we found the first sign. This wasn't your average crash. A pair of trainers, brand new, size 5, just sitting there in the mud. A bit further on, a mobile phone, soaked, switched off, but its notification light was still blinking. We tried to trace any signals, but nothing worked. GPS was dead, radio silent. It was like the world had cut us off from that stretch of road. And then we heard it. Laughter. Low, sharp, like a kid's giggle. But there were no kids out there, and it wasn't just one laugh. It was a chorus, like a load of voices laughing in sync, mocking us. Graham swung his torch ahead, and for a split second, I saw something glinting in the dark. eyes, not normal eyes. They were sunken, glowing with this sickly yellow light. They vanished as quick as they appeared. We bolted back to the car, locked the doors. Graham wanted to call for backup, but the radio was now spitting out a woman's voice, repeating a phrase in Latin. I recognized it from a course I'd done years back. Viatores caveant, via deverat. Translation: Travelers beware. The road devours. The wrecked truck was still there, but now every door was shut tight, like it had never been opened. And there was something scrawled on the rear window, written in finger marks. They didn't leave. Me and Graham locked eyes. Neither of us had written it. Minutes later, when we finally got through to base, they said there'd been no report of an accident in that area. No record, zilch, and the kicker. When we went back to the exact spot where the truck had been, it was gone. No tire tracks, no sign anything had ever been there. In the days that followed, we tried to dig into it ourselves. Graham got obsessed. He started researching disappearances on the M6. Found out that since the 70s, there'd been scattered reports of abandoned vehicles vanishing without a trace. Passengers who just disappeared, no evidence left behind. Witnesses who swore they saw people walking in the dark, but no one was ever found. A month later, Graham was found dead at his house. Heart attack, they said. But the coroner's report noted something odd. His pupils were dilated, like he'd seen something horrifying seconds before he died. On the floor of his study, there were dozens of photos of Junction 17 on the M6, scribbled over in red pen. One had a phrase scratched into it, hard: "The road once more." I avoid that stretch now, switched departments, changed shifts. But every time I hear a radio crackling or see a broken down patrol car on some motorway, my heart races, because I know that night wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't madness. There's a piece of the M6 that doesn't belong to this world. And sometimes it claims its own passengers. If you're listening, I've got one bit of advice. If you're driving and the radio starts whispering your name, don't look in the rearview mirror. You might not like what's looking back. My name's Jonathan Fell. For 17 years, I was a senior archivist at the Department for Transport Historical Division UK. My job was straightforward, sorting through stacks of documents, traffic reports, accident logs and technical memos that landed on my desk every day. I wasn't the type to buy into conspiracies. I believed in order, in logic. That is, until the day an unmarked envelope showed up, with nothing but a strange code scrawled on it, M6 UDNIDNA. It was late 2011, just another morning at the office. Lukewarm coffee, flickering fluorescent lights, the dull hum of printers in the background. When I opened the envelope, a musty, damp smell hit me, like a whisper from somewhere old and forgotten. The papers inside didn't belong to any official system. No stamps, no records, written in a typeface I hadn't seen in decades. There were 3 pages clipped together with a rusty staple, all dated September 2003. The first page was an internal DFT memo demanding the immediate erasure of any trace of an accident without casualties on Junction 17 of the M6. The words were chilling. Avoid all public mention. Instructions from above mandate total silence. That sent a shiver down my spine. I'd seen reports of minor accidents before, but never an order to wipe one completely from existence. The second page was worse. It was a field report from a government-contracted engineering team. They described finding marks on the M6 that were impossible to explain. A 12-meter patch of tarmac looked like it had melted and reformed. No heat was recorded, no fire. But the ground seemed to have shifted on its own. One engineer, in a handwritten note, said he felt a presence watching from beneath the motorway, like something alive was under the wheels. The final page was the one that broke me. It was a transcript. It documented a conversation between two traffic police radio operators, time-stamped from the early hours of 22nd of September 2003. It started with static. Then a woman's voice, flat and emotionless, said, "They didn't leave," followed by laughter, lots of it. Kids maybe, or something trying to sound like kids. The report ended with a line. "The truck is still moving, but no one's inside." It was classified as a phantom accident. I spent days in silence, poring over those pages. I dug through the DFT's digital archives, but anything tied to M609R was locked behind a password even my supervisors didn't have. So I did something I knew could cost me my job. I took the papers home. For weeks, I scoured for any public mention of the incident. Nothing. Not in local papers, not on radio archives. But then I found a lead in an old, nearly dead internet forum. A post from 2008 by an anonymous user talked about the silent bend on the M6 and pinpointed Junction 17. The writer said their dad, a lorry driver, vanished there in 2003. His truck was found abandoned, engine still running, but no human traces nearby. Motorway cameras caught the truck pulling over, but showed no one getting out. No doors opening, just the vehicle stopped. Then a 3-minute blackout in the footage. When the feed came back, the truck was still there, but the radio was playing a song that didn't exist. That's when it hit me. Others were trying to forget. Not just the government, not just the coppers, even the families. Almost every report vanished days after surfacing. Profiles deleted, comments scrubbed. A silence enforced with eerie precision. And then something happened to me. One night, I got home to find my front door slightly ajar. No signs of a break-in, but my desk, where I'd hidden the documents, was empty. Nothing else was taken, not my computer, not the telly, just those 3 pages. And on the desk, written in thick black marker, "Stop digging. The road is watching." That broke me. I tried warning an old mate from the DFT, someone I trusted. I sent a discreet message asking him to check the history of M6 projects. He replied hours later, begging me to destroy any copies I had left. He said the term used in hushed tones was boundary road, a zone where space didn't follow normal physics, where time moved strangely, where things could enter but didn't always leave. I was obsessed. But I also started feeling like I wasn't alone anymore. My car radio would turn on by itself. Once, I heard my own voice coming through it, saying things I'd never said. One night, driving back on the M6, I saw a kid standing on the hard shoulder wearing a red coat. I slowed down, pulled over, got out to help. But when I got closer, it was just a traffic cone, nothing else. And behind me, the sound of footsteps. sprinting the other way. I never went back to the M6 after that. I quit my job, moved towns, burned everything I had. But sometimes, on quiet nights, I still hear that voice. They didn't leave, and the worst part, I think now they want me to tell you, not to warn you, but to spread it. Do you really think this is just a story? Then tell me, why does the DFT have an entire unit dedicated to unrecorded routes? Why is the M6 the stretch every night driver avoids? If what happened that September night in 2003 wasn't just an accident, but something that was never meant to be seen, 3 accounts, 3 strangers, all touched by the same void, by the absence, by whatever lurks between the miles of the M6, a driver who vanished without a trace. A copper driven mad by something he couldn't explain. An archivist who was warned too late. And the bodies never found. Not a bone, not a drop of blood. Like the road swallowed them. Like something under the tarmac. Or worse, inside it is waiting. Feeding on fear, on silence, on memory. Maybe the mistake was never the accident itself, but trying to forget what it revealed. If you've made it this far, some part of you believes these stories hold a grain of truth. And if you believe, then you know. Next time you're on the M6 at night, keep your eyes on the hard shoulder. If you see a truck stopped, engine running, with no one at the wheel, floor it. Don't stop. Never stop. If this story's got you chilled, curious, or feeling like something or someone is watching you right now, smash that like button to keep the channel going. Subscribe, because there's more that needs to be told. And drop a comment below. Do you really think this is just a story? Are you sure you're alone right now?